But what happens? People get angry. People who worship the devil, when you start saying, no, we're not going to do that anymore, it gets people pretty upset. Now, we're instructed, and we're going to get to there a little bit later, Old Testament, New Testament alike, tearing down the altar of Baal is something that we ought to be doing. Amen. We need to be casting this down. Hey, we're alive on this earth. We have to live in this earth. We know that there's a lot of wicked people out there, but you know what? There's some things that we don't have to tolerate. Right. Amen. And God's instructing, take down the devil worship. Especially to his people. It's supposed to be a godly people. It's supposed to be a nation that serves the Lord. And here they are setting up altars unto Baal. He says, take those down. Cast it down. What happens when he does that, though? You're going to expect some backlash. And they said one to another, verse 29, who hath done this thing? And when they inquired and asked, they said, Gideon, the son of Joash, hath done this thing. Then the men of the city said unto Joash, bring out thy son that he may die. Because he hath cast down the altar of Baal, and because he hath cut down the grove that was by it. I mean, they want his blood. They want him dead. We think it's bad now with our cancel culture and people wanting to cancel you, go after you. This is at the heart of the wicked doers anyways. I mean, this is where the cancel culture is going to lead one day. It's going to happen. It's going to be around the corner. But here's the thing. We can't fear. God's the one instructing him, and you know what? God's the one that gets him through this as well. We can't fear what man can do unto us, but we ought to be fearing God and obeying him. Bible says in verse 31, and Joash said unto all that stood against him, will ye plead for Baal? Will ye save him? He that will plead for him, let him be put to death whilst it is yet morning. If he be a god, let him plead for himself, because one hath cast down his altar. So Joash is taking a step back. I mean, this is his son, now that all the people want to put to death. But it was his altar to the devil. And parents, make sure you're not setting up altars unto Baal in your house. Because if you do have a son that wants to live righteously, it could come back and bite you one day. But here we have, Joash takes a step back, is going, wait a minute. If Baal really is a god, if he could, why doesn't he take care of it then? Why doesn't, if he's so angry and upset that someone cast down his altar, why doesn't he just go ahead and kill him? So why do we have to take care of his business? He says, if he's a god, let him plead for himself. Obviously, there's some part of Joash here, I think, that realizes that Baal's just the trend. He sets up the Baal. You know what? Yeah, a lot of people like him for setting up the altar to Baal, but at the end of the day, he knows it's a phony god. He knows it's just a bunch of nonsense, and that's why he's in order to save his son, he's saying, okay, well, wait a minute. No, if he's a god, let him plead for himself. It says in verse 32, therefore on that day he called him Jerubbaal, saying, let Baal plead against him, because he hath thrown down his altar.